Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Ducks Unlimited. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver.
That's right. We are just a couple of days away now. Everybody gets to kick off here in another 2-3 days.
66 hours.
Oh, your math's better than mine.
Well, we all know that. That's been obvious from day one on that shit.
Yep.
And you're teaching your kid new math now.
Yeah, new math, not good. Have your kids are older, right, David? I'm teaching my kid new math.
I've got one in college. One's a junior in college, and one is a junior in high school. And I don't know what math they're learning. I leave that up to my spouse, the former teacher.
It is a lot of adding to subtract and subtracting to add, and it's a mess. I mean, I don't understand how math was math. You had your problem, and you did it one way, and now all of a sudden they're monkeying with math. So. It's tough. Tough having little kids.
I thought math was one of those things like that couldn't be monkeyed with. That's what they taught us.
It's timeless.
I thought it was too.
I don't understand. 15% of 100 is 15. I don't give a shit how you do it, where you come from. That's the answer.
But the way that they do it now is different. So
I don't know why. Your wife's a former teacher. Did she retire, or did she just she don't have to teach no more?
She transitioned out of teaching into technical editing. She was an English teacher.
Oh, I needed that in high school. It's funny. I went to I didn't have a high school reunion. We had a big rivalry football game in Wichita Falls, and we all went back to it this year. And there was a lot of kids I went to high school with, different classes above me and below me. And we talked. I had an English teacher, and I went to big high school, and we had like college orientation. And you could take whatever classes you wanted to take at the time you wanted to take. And then you had to have your counselor sign off on it. Well, we had an old black lady that was an English teacher there named Miss Wilson, Dorothy Wilson. And she was the funniest lady I've ever seen in my life. If Red Fox would have taught a class, it would have been Dorothy Wilson. And so I took her for 3 of my 4 years in high school just because she made me laugh all the time. Absolutely the biggest mistake I ever made because I didn't learn anything. And we were talking about that. And everybody that took Miss Wilson for more than 2 years was talking about how hard college English was for them. I took college English 3 times to make a C. And I was happy with that C. And to be honest with you, I cheated to get the C. I'm terrible at grammar. But your wife is I needed someone like your wife. But I would hate to be a teacher these days. I can't think of a more frustrating job to either be a policeman or to be a teacher in this country right now.
I'd agree with that. I think they ought to be paid more, all of them.
They should. The Andy's on school board. Why don't you give our teachers more money, Andy?
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. So we actually had a budget meeting last night, and with gas prices going up, insurance is through the roof. Just getting kids in extracurricular activities to where they need to go. A lot of extra expenses are tacked on that weren't necessarily there 20 years ago. So
with us today from Ducks Unlimited, Mr. David Schuessler. David, it's good to have you on again. We're going to talk duck numbers today.
And they're very confusing.
Yeah, because I see they're bad and I see they're good. So I want you to tell me what we're looking at, because I see where mallard numbers are way down and so are widgeons.
Yes, they're very confusing. This is one of those confusing years. When they came out, I think across the board, everybody kind of went, ooh, especially looking at mallards and widgeon. Once you kind of take a deep breath and think about where we are, think about what's happened the past few years, I believe the realization started to settle over everybody that drought was a little worse in 2020 and 2021 when they, weren't doing the surveys, and is lingering in some areas longer than we would like for it to. Personally, when the duck numbers come out for me, it's a little bit like Christmas Day, right? You get to start thinking about this and look at it and how's everything doing. I like looking at the Maypond counts, which is always at the bottom of it, which is more of a habitat index than just how many mallards we're breeding this year in the survey area, how many widgeon we're breeding. And if you look at that Maypond, I think that's what gives the picture of going into, really 19, we were starting to dry up. 20 and 21 really didn't have any data other than folks on the ground saying it's really bad dry up here. And then as we came out and started getting numbers again last year and this year, it got dry. And the lag, at least in the breeding numbers for mallards and widgeon, I believe showed that. I believe that's directly proportionate to how dry it is in some of those traditional areas. And it's certainly something of concern and something that we have to continue to watch moving forward as we pray for the prairies to get wetter. And it's confusing because then you look at pintails and they had a rebound from the year prior.
Yeah, the pintail numbers are up significantly, aren't they?
Up 24%, but down 43 over the long term.
Yeah, which, if you look at that long term, it kind of got them back in line to where they had been. Pintail, gaunt both have they've been below that long term average for many, many years. I don't think a lot of people realize that last year, we might have talked about this a year ago on the show, but pintail numbers were getting close to needing to do that season inside of a season, which I think a lot of your listeners can remember from 15 or 16 years ago, when you were only allowed to shoot pintails for 30 days of a 60-day season. We were creeping down to that number. So, the bright spot inside of the numbers this year is to see that rebound of pintails and kind of maybe give a little bit of a sigh of relief. Although, Alberta is such an important area to pintails, and it certainly hadn't recovered. It got some moisture late, which is good for production. There is a difference between the breeding population and potentially that production of clutch sizes that'll be coming south, which I believe there's a little bit more optimism on that because there was some late moisture across the prairies. But yeah, it's nice to see the pintail numbers jump.
Yeah, I'm looking at 2022 right now, and pintails last year were down 21 from 19 and down 54 from the long-term average. So
we picked up 10%. 10% of the long-term numbers we caught up. We went from 54 to 43. So we gained 10% on the long term.
But what David was saying, it basically made up the difference from what we were down in 19 to
right. I saw some margarita drinking pintails here 2 days ago. 2 days ago. I saw the first pintails I seen behind the lodge also. We had a lot of teal.
You need to fix your binoculars.
You need to go fix them. I know what a damn pintail looks like.
You see all these phantom ducks before anybody else does.
Go down there and look. They're right there right now.
They're snipe.
There ain't no fucking snipe.
That's what they are.
Those
rails.
Are teal. We had 2 big flocks of teal last week come in.
It's 115 here in Texas.
And I saw a couple pintails. You can go down there and look right now, jackass.
Whatever.
They're down there.
I don't know how you.
I'll tell you. Let me tell you, the teal are early.
Oh, thanks, David.
I've seen them with my own eyes. We started seeing teal in West Tennessee and Arkansas 3 weeks ago. Like it was shocking. And we have a little holding pond behind the office here, and I looked up at one point and I saw just the powder blue wings making a swing on this pond. That was 3 weeks ago.
I'd hate to see you and Jeff scouting.
And everyone jumped up. The teal are here.
Why are they on the move so early? Were there any north winds in Canada?
There's north winds here.
Yeah. Yep.
We got a north wind now.
And I think people would be shocked to know how early blue-winged teal, some of them, not all of them, obviously, but how early some of them will start to make that migration. I have seen them in the marshes of South Carolina, and I have seen them in the marshes of Texas and the marshes of Florida as early as the second week of August.
Dale Bordelon had a deal on Facebook early on the weekend. Maybe they were doing some work on one of their marsh blinds, and they had a bunch of teal down there also too, and that's southern Louisiana. But hell, we forget they're going all the way to Columbia. It's not like this is just a little short. They got a long ass way to go.
Nicaragua.
Yeah, those birds, I believe teal season should run the whole month of September, early teal season. I don't think it would affect, especially in the South, I don't think it would affect the numbers at all on those birds. What are the blue-winged teals numbers on their, are they
down 19? They're
down 19%
from last year.
I don't even know how the hell they count them because it ain't the hunters in America. They must be killing the shit out of them in Nicaragua then.
Does the May pond come into that? Does the May pond count factor into that at all? Like, how do they get a count on blue wings?
Well, they're flying those traditional transects, and they're, at the time of year they try to do it in early May, and they're counting the blue wing teal that they see, and these are the birds that were counted, and then you extrapolate that data out. But blue wings are still 2% ahead of long-term average.
What's crazy about the blue wing teal is we have blue wing and cinnamon teal here in May. They're still here. They hadn't left and gone north yet. And then you go June and July, you don't see them, and then in August you start seeing them again. There's some quick readers.
You have, where you are in a wet year, you're going to have blue wing teal breeding in West Texas. Not huge numbers of them, right? But there are some that go way, way, way far south. And if they're coming back and they find the habitat they need in West Texas at the bottom of the Southern Plains, they'll stop and go ahead and set up shop for the summer.
2 springs ago, we had them here having nests. There was a couple of places I'd see them nesting. What about, I had a really good question, and I've lost my train of thought here. Oh, I know what it was. Mallards. See, I don't buy the mallard count because there's so many damn mallards that are everywhere that are nesting. City parks, ponds. If there's water, we've got anywhere in the United States you can find mallards year round.
Right. Understand that this is not, these counts don't give us an estimate of every single duck across, the U.S. This is in that area that they survey to give us a long-term average of what these populations are doing. And they're certainly not, taking into account the mallards that might breed in West Tennessee. We have wild mallards that breed in West Tennessee. It's not a whole bunch of them, but there are some. But what this does tell us is in that survey area, this is what they saw this year. And as somebody told me the other day, you have to take this data and you have to wrap your arms around it, because in the good years we don't question it, right?
Right.
When things are good and it's wet up there and and you got all these beautiful numbers, we don't question it. So I think we have to take it for what it is, which is data, and look at those species that we have concerns over and want to keep an eye on. And right now that would be the mallard and the widgeon.
Do you have
just because it seems the lag of that drought, and in some parts that ongoing drought just seems to have an impact on those birds. And maybe it's not seems, it has had an impact on those species.
I assume there's river mallards that stay along the Mississippi River that live their whole life, and some of them probably never leave the Memphis metro area. Is that true?
I don't know. I've seen some freeze ups here that I don't know how they couldn't leave. And in some of those years where we lock up for 5 or 6 days and have 3 feet of snow on the ground, they got to go somewhere. I guess they could hit the river, but there's not much for them to eat on the Mississippi River.
No, but it never freezes where y'all are, right?
No, it doesn't.
I would figure you north of St. Louis. Yeah.
Really. St. Louis north. So yeah, they could hold it out there.
What about the widgeon? We're down 14, down 28 long term. Let's see what we were. So like last year they were down 25 from 19 and down 19 long term. Is it because with widgeon, I mean, you can shoot 6 of them, right? Is there anything where limits might be looked at later on down the line if this has another year?
I would have to think if any species continues in decline, at some point the flyaway councils would have to address it. I've heard nothing of like that. We got to see what happens next year. See what type of moisture we get, and is there any type of rebound on it? Y'all see a lot of widgeon. I think it's a species that is certainly widespread, but you don't see them really in super heavy concentrations, like say the redheads in the Laguna Madre, right? Or the canvasbacks in Chesapeake Bay or something like that. But any species, they're going to, at some point, they'll take a look at it and say, okay, we have to do something. But I haven't heard anything about the widgeon. But that's that's a concerning number, to be 28% below long-term average.
Yeah. And widgeon are my absolute favorite duck to shoot. Like if you tell me like we're going to go, especially if we're dry field hunting a bunch of widgeon, they're going to be just stupid. You throw out a couple spinners and they do it perfect. So that's why I was wondering, because you can shoot so many of them. You can shoot 6, which I guess you can shoot 5 mallards, but yeah, I love widgeon, and I would hate to see a day where they were in jeopardy from year to year, but they come back so quickly, it seems like.
I figured the duck number, I really figured what was coming.
All it takes is one wet year.
Is we're going to have a 3 duck limit is what I figure is coming. I want to keep our days. I would rather keep our days. And I'm greedy because I'm in the hunting business, but we don't sell tons of duck hunts. But I would rather have that opportunity if I was a duck hunter to hunt 100 days and kill 3 ducks than to hunt 60 days and get to kill 5 ducks.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work that way.
What do you think they're going to do?
It's all laid out in the adaptive harvest management plan, which takes the number of ducks and the number of ponds and meshes them together on a graph. And if you reach below a certain threshold, you're going to go to 45. Well, at least in the Mississippi flyway where I am, you're going to go to 45 and 4 ducks and then 30 and 3 ducks. But that 45 and 4 is a pretty thin ribbon. I think it would be, I'm trying to think, in the central flyway, because y'all get 72 days, correct?
I think we get longer than that. We get all in November, December, and January. So November is 30 days. We get 31 days in December. That's 61. And we get 29. We get 90 days.
We get 28 days in January.
28 in January.
No, it might even be less than that. You might only get 20 days in January.
No, it doesn't. That's the last Sunday of the month.
Y'all might be in that
we
high plains.
We are in high plains.
Yeah, we're in the high plains.
Yeah, so which that's a small portion of it. So yeah, I apologize. I do not know what the restrictive and the moderate would be inside of the high plains mallard.
It goes to the 28th. We get 89 days, and they give us 2 days special or 3 days in October. I think we have a 92-day season actually.
Yeah, there's people listening on the East Coast right now going, how in the world did they get that many days? It's because you don't have any hunters out there.
Yeah.
In the Pacific Flyway and the number of days that they get to hunt them, and it all comes down to the number of hunters and the amount of pressure that's being put on it. And I'm fortunate, I meet a lot of people from around the country doing what I do for a living, and have had the opportunity to go and hunt with friends. And I will tell you that there's a big difference in the number of hunters out in West Texas than there is people hunting on the Chesapeake Bay. So I think they do a real good job at maximizing opportunity in areas of low pressure for those that do chase them in those parts of the world.
They got 50 million people living in an area the size of the Panhandle of Texas. That's got a big damn difference too. Mm-hmm. And in the Panhandle of Texas, there's not 500,000 people. I mean, so there's your deal. We got water and we got food.
Yeah, waterfowl hunting is a very popular sport, and you know, in all stretches of this country, which is great. I mean, I think it's fantastic. That's what helps keep the tradition alive and lets folks like y'all and me do what we do for a living.
It's funny too, because when you talk about people and they say, well, we used to have more hunters than we have now. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't care what the stats say. When I was a kid hunting, you didn't see people hunting like you do now. Just didn't do it. There was people that hunted, but not like they do now. You go to the Texas Panhandle now, and there's tons of hunters out. There's tons of hunters here. That wasn't that way when I was a kid growing up. I mean,
yeah, I think there are parts of the country that definitely have fewer waterfowl hunters than they used to. I just offhand trying to think about this data that I analyzed it, gosh, about a decade ago. Really, it's places like Wisconsin, Minnesota, some of the upper part of the Mississippi Flyway is where we've seen those hunter numbers decline, and they've grown in the South. Right. It is in the southern part of the U.S. Duck hunting is waterfowl hunting is very, very popular today. Probably more so than it was back in the 50s and 60s. And so, you know, I will tell you where I hunt. I'm certainly not seeing a decline of hunters. No. But it just all depends.
There's more hunters in Texas, waterfowl hunters, than there was when I was a kid growing up. Now, they might not sell as many licenses as they did then. I don't know. But I'm just telling you my experience of being in the field. I never ran into the waterfowl hunters and knew the people that waterfowl hunt like I do now. And I think Instagram, I think social media has changed that. I think Phil Robertson changed it for the better. And a lot of people bitch about that because they're greedy. Phil Robertson introduced people, kids, and got kids out of the house wanting to go waterfowl hunt. And I think that was great for the sport. I really do.
I know that the average days that a waterfowl hunter hunts is higher than it used to be. So you know, years ago, you might have had somebody who bought their license and their stamp every year, but they might have gone duck hunting 5 times in a season. And they mixed it in with deer hunting and quail hunting and rabbit hunting. And I kind of grew up that way. I was a pretty avid waterfowl hunter. We went every chance we could, but we mixed it in with everything else. You know, our trifecta was to waterfowl hunt in the morning, dove hunt in the middle of the day, and deer hunt in the afternoon. And we did it a lot of times, more times than, especially around holidays, that my aunts and grandmamas and mama cared for us to. But the average waterfowl hunter today is hunting a lot. You know, I mean, how many? I know that y'all probably have clients that maybe that trip out there is their one time of the year, but your buddies that you know, most people, when they get into it, that is what they do now. They might bow hunt before waterfowl season comes in, and they're going to turkey hunt in the spring. But, you know, when duck season is there, they are all in.
Yeah, I've got.
And I think a lot of it has to do with all the great gear that we can buy and spend all that money on, and people want to take advantage of it.
When I had a group of guys the other day booked a hunt from us, and they're out of state, and they're coming for 3 days. And he told me, he said, we used to hunt on our own all the time. He goes, time we scout and take off work to go scout to hunt for 3 or 4 or 5 days in Kansas or somewhere. He goes, 1 out of 3 days, we got a chance to actually get on some birds. The other 2 times we're fighting outfitters or guys that have been there for 3 months, or not 3 months, but just for a couple of weeks doing the same thing. He goes, it's just better for us to go to about 3 different trips a year. We spend the same amount of money just about, and our time is limited. I can take off work 2 weeks to go waterfowl hunting, and so I do 3 different trips. He said that way it keeps me from getting a divorce, and he says I spend less money.
Years ago, I worked with a guy prior to working for DU, and I worked for a coffee importer and roaster. And he wasn't in my division, but we officed out of the same office in Charlotte. And his office was filled with this big, beautiful, massive deer heads. And as I got to know him, I'd ask, where'd you kill that one? Iowa. Where'd you kill that one? Kansas. Where'd you kill that one? New York. So, man, you hunt a bunch of places. And he said, David, I'm so busy, I just choose 1 week-long hunt a year and spend the amount of money that my lease and everything else used to cost me, and I just go and do that, and try to kill one for the wall every year, and put meat in the freezer. And I said I could never do that. And he was older than me, and he looked at me and said, "Trust me, son, you will get to the age where that is going to be what you do."
That's true. But we've got a lot of customers that do that. That instead of having a lease and jack, I got a group of guys that used to go to hunt the Texas coast all the time, and I guess that is just a shit show down there some mornings in the Matagorda Bay and stuff. And they come hunt with us every year. And he said, "I sold my boat and all my shit." And he goes, "I hunt here." He goes to Arkansas and does a hunt. He goes somewhere up north, and he said, "I spend the same amount of money." And he said, "I have less stress in my life." And
I have heard that it has gotten very, very crowded down in that part of the world.
It's crazy too when you drive like at Rockport and you look out over the lagoon there, or Laguna Madre, and you see 400 duck blinds scattered out every 200.
Mm-hmm.
You thought, well, they're shooting either some dumbass ducks or some damn smart ducks there, because they see the same shit at every blind. There's nothing different you can do. When we were in Venice a couple weeks ago, we were going through there, and it was just a maze of stuff. And I thought, man, these coon asses are lucky to have this right here in their backyard. What a cool place to live and stuff. And I thought, boy, I bet during duck season it's a crowded son of a gun, though. Every other bin's got set of decoys out.
Yeah, they still do pretty good down there. And a lot of that road down to Venice, while there's certainly a lot of public area, I do know that, there's a lot of private ground down there as well. But that mouth of the Mississippi River there's a lot of ducks that come down that river to call the end of it home. And it would be and is a neat place to live until a Category 4 comes up that river.
Yeah, that would be the bad. That would be bad. What about? I've been to the Chesapeake, but I've never been on the Chesapeake Bay. Is where that water dumps in at the Chesapeake? Is that a lot like where the Mississippi dumps in? The same kind of fish and waterfowl and stuff.
Waterfowl wise, yes. It's to me, it's more. It's not quite as channelized as the Mississippi. There's certain, the entire Louisiana coast is an estuary. But right at the mouth of the Mississippi, I mean, there is so much water flowing from northern Minnesota that comes all the way down. To me, as it spreads out, it kind of is, but it doesn't have that massive cubic feet per second flowing right there at the very end. And you can get yourself in trouble at the mouth of the Mississippi duck hunting. You need to know what you're doing with tender boats and a bigger boat pulling a smaller boat and all the things that they do. And I'm sure they do that on the Chesapeake as well. But I've hunted both areas, and to me, it just seems like the Chesapeake is a little more spread out, and that doesn't make sense because of how much land is down there in Louisiana. But I don't know, that river the mouth of that Mississippi scares me a little bit, just from fishing on it and duck hunting on it and how much water's flowing through there.
It is a very interesting place. It may be the hottest place in the United States.
It was a cool moment though, like when we came around the bend and like they told us like, okay, you're entering the mouth of the Mississippi. It is a cool kind of moment to think about, like that, how important that is to America, and what makes America kind of unique in its makeup, and just the amount of import and export that goes in and out of America every single day. And I mean, it is what made America pretty much.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. The number of immigrants that came in there. I mean, there's Ellis Island up in New York, right? Yeah. Had that there, the spice trade that came through there. I mean, if you follow that river up, the musical heritage that moved itself up that river, architecture that moved itself up that river. There are some older homes here in Memphis that look like some of those classic homes, in New Orleans, that have that ornate iron work to it and the veranda architecture. And we have it here because the craftsmen just moved upriver. You know, okay, they've got this place I can go and find work, and they move right up to Memphis and then right up to St. Louis and on up to Minneapolis. And it's a really, really, really neat part of our country.
You know, it is. And it's the rivers made what we become. The river system was a big part of that. But can you imagine the man that put in at Long Island and took a big canoe and went all the way up to the St. Lawrence River and came all the way back across to the Hudson Bay? Those are a different breed of cats back then.
That's a different breed of cat. Or if you're from the part of the world I'm from, which is the northern Gulf Coast of Florida, as my father said, can you imagine the first conquistador covered in chainmail and metal, who walked through these marshes with these no-see-ums, and what he must have thought about the New World? I bet he was ready to go back home to Spain.
Do they have alligators in Spain?
I don't know, but I assure you they saw a bunch of them when they landed in Florida.
Yeah, because they landed in St. John's River right there at St. Augustine was their first big place to go into, right? That's where Ponce de Leon was, and that was like in the 15th, was it early 1400s? I think it was old.
Yeah, and well, St. Augustine's the oldest city in the United States.
And I can't remember how old it is, but it's old. But it was before the Plymouth town. And could you imagine, like you said, the mosquitoes, the hot, the sweat, you get off the boat, you go through the Bahamas and the Caribbean, which is beautiful, and you land in the St. John's River. I'd be like, I think we need to get back on the boat and go back down about another 200 miles somewhere.
Ponce de Leon landed there?
He was in St. Augustine. That's where the Fountain of Youth supposedly is. Am I correct, David? I don't know my Florida history like I do Texas history, but that's...
He was looking, I mean, he went all over the state. He was looking for the Fountain of Youth.
And that was...
And never found it. Never found it. But he went all over the state. If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember my middle school history now. I think over into parts of what's now Louisiana. Of course, part of Louisiana was Florida at one point. There was all type of different Spanish settlers that traversed all across that state, and could only imagine what they saw, the things they saw, and the animals that they came across.
Yeah, I guarantee you that. I guarantee you they lost some guys to gators because they weren't looking for them.
1565.
No.
Yes, it is. Founded in 1565 by Spanish conquistador Pedro Medellín de... my Spanish is not very good.
That ain't Ponce de Leon. It says Ponce de Leon was in 1513.
I'm talking about the city of St. Augustine.
Oh, okay.
Is what I'm doing.
Sorry.
It was founded in 1565 is when it was founded. And it would have been, them guys, but you know what? They didn't know any different. Just like us, we went to eat last night, and we were sitting in a restaurant eating, and the air conditioning was cold. And I told the waiter said something about being hot. I said, it's miserable outside. He's like, gosh almighty. He said, imagine what we'd be without air conditioning. I thought, man, that's right. And then Tony's like, when we were kids, we didn't have air conditioning. I said, we got acclimated to it. It's not no hot. It's no hotter now than it was as a kid.
Some of the schools I went to growing up, we didn't have air conditioning in those schools, but I think we were acclimated to it.
We did not have an air conditioner in the school I went to. When I was in elementary, in elementary in Wichita Falls, went from K to 6. When I got in 7th grade, they put elementary, got the air conditioning. When I was in junior high, which was 7th and 8th, when I was in 9th grade, they got junior high, got air conditioning. I think I was a junior in high school before we had my high school had air conditioning. So my whole time before that, I grew up without air conditioning. We had windows and we had fans. And I'm sure we were hot, but we didn't know it.
It was chasing you. That AC was chasing you. When I went to Auburn, some of the buildings that I went to class in did not have air conditioning my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Got it my senior year, and that was in the 1980s. But we had fans. You got acclimated to it. Not all the buildings, but some of the older ones.
How did you end up at Auburn as a Florida kid?
forestry, and my family had at the time, my family had the private bookstore at Florida State, and the unwritten family rule was that you went off to school because I grew up working on that campus. And my grandfather, who was a University of Alabama grad, believed that for those of us that were going to go to college, he wanted us to experience it like other kids do and not just be right there, especially for us, those of us in my family, be right there in an environment that you had grown up with as long as you could remember. And I wanted to be a forester. And so I went to Auburn and then learned that I had to have some physics and things like that in forestry, and said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm just get a business.
I'm going to tell you, that's one thing I regret in my life is that I did not, my family had no money at all to send me to school, but I was too stupid to realize I could have qualified for every grant and loan in the world. I wish I would have went off somewhere way off and didn't know a soul, and I wish I'd have went somewhere up north where they had seasons. I don't give a shit if it had been Chadron State in Nebraska or some little school in Vermont or Boston College or, one of the Ivy Leagues. Anything like that I think would be a great experience. And I try to tell young kids that here all the time. You know what? Get out and see the world. You can always come back home. But if you don't go experience, you'll never know what you missed out on. I mean, you never, ever, ever know. I passed up a job in Old Mexico when I was 19 or 20 years old at a resort. They offered me a job as an entertainment director. They had like a amateur night, and I told jokes and stuff on stage and shit. And I got called to the back, and this guy that owned the resort was a senator from Canada. And he's like, Senator Dubois would like to talk to you, sir. And so I get out of the pool, and I go through these walkway, and this guy's sitting there with his suit on, a white suit, and got all these servants around feeding him. He's like, would you like something to eat? And he offered me a job. I didn't take it. It was the dumbest thing I ever did. What a cool job to work for this summer in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I probably would have
been cool.
Yeah, I probably would have got killed by the drug cartel, but it'd been fun 3 months. But that's why I tell young kids, don't base your life on when you're 19 or 20 years old, 3 to 6 months of your life or a year. You got your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah, but that's easy to say as a 55-year-old man or a 53-year-old man. All a 19-year-old or 20-year-old cares about is where am I going to get my beer money and who am I drinking it with? That's as far they can't see past Friday night. But that's what makes them 19 and 20 years old.
Yeah, I know, and I wish I would have done different. I wish I would have seen past that.
You can't. Nobody can. Nobody does hardly.
All I cared about is, was there any duck hunting nearby?
Right.
I turned down 2 jobs because as I went and interviewed for them, and as I looked at it, I said, I don't know anybody here, and I don't think I can get my boat and my decoys and afford to have them here. I'm going to hold out for something else because I want to be able every Saturday and Sunday to go duck hunting.
We had a good friend of ours that turned down a job at Cabela's 25 years ago, 30 years ago. I don't think he's that old, probably 25 years ago. Had got a job at Cabela's, and they offered it to him, and he went out to Sydney, or where's the other town at that they're in? It's either Sydney or...
Don't get me lying.
Cabela's
is Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney.
Is it Sydney?
Sydney, Nebraska. Was the head.
That's where he had a job offer at. And he was at Sydney, Nebraska, and had a job offer there. And he's like, I just don't think I could live out there. And he likes to duck hunt and stuff. I think he's regretted it ever since. Because, but he was thinking more, man, I'm a single guy. I'm 24 years old. I got my master's degree. There's not a lot of nightlife here and blah, blah, blah. Well, as he's gotten older, nightlife's not that important. I would have loved to live in Sydney, Nebraska and do that, so.
Shoot pheasants and whitetails.
Yeah, but
And I'm sure ducks too.
It just that's what you tell kids this and they don't listen.
Do you want your boys to go off to college, Andy? To somewhere else?
I don't know what college is going to be in another 10 years, to be honest with you. I don't know.
I think we're going to go back.
I want them to find purpose in life. You hear the old cliche saying, I want them to be happy, but I don't want them to be happy. I want them to be fulfilled, and I want them to feel like their job has meaning, and I want them to feel like they're making the world a better place in whatever they do. I don't want them to be happy because that's a hollow goal, because there's going to be plenty of days where you're not happy doing what you love to do. So you took a lot of fun out of that deal. If that is college for them, then they go off to college and dick around. But if they want to go to the workforce, because I really think that as we start to see America transition, plumbers, HVAC units, HVAC guys, they're going to start making a killing. So if they want to go to the trades, go to the trades. Just find purpose.
I'm 100% with you in agreement on that. I think college is going to be what college was in the 60s. I think college is going to become a wealthy person only. You know, the 50s and 60s, usually the kids from upper middle class families, the ones that went to college. Not all of them, but that's the only people that could afford to go to college. You know, there's an old song that says a rich girl's looking to get married, and a poor man goes to work, and blah blah blah. And that's the way it used to be. And I think that's what we're going to be, the way our country's going. You know, college is not worth it for a lot of people nowadays.
I've got a degree and I don't use it.
Did your degree get you your job, David?
Yeah.
I did.
Well, I don't want to say it got me my job. I ended up being a marketing major, and I'm one of those rare individuals that uses things that I learned in my classes every single day of my life. And maybe I should be thankful for that.
Right.
You got a cool ass job. There's one of you in the whole United States that does what you do. Do you ever think about that you're the only one that does what you do?
No, I've never thought about that. But I'll tell you, I don't consider it. I truly don't consider it that way. You know, I have a team of about 120, 130 staff, mixed both here inside of the headquarters and then our field staff. And I view our org chart is very linear. I truly feel like I have the same purpose and get up every day and want to do the same things as a lot of my staff. And yes, I have some big decisions I have to make and things like that. But I'd like to feel that all of us could do all of our jobs. We're in place to do the job that's in front of us. And if we all do our job, really, really great things happen for waterfowl conservation. A sense of pride for me is, you know, we budget millions and millions of dollars every year to go to the prairies from our efforts in event fundraising. We had a very successful year last year, and we're able to send an additional $2 million to the prairies to do more work. And of course, when you match that with NACA dollars and private dollars and using that as seed money. Last week, I actually had our staff meeting. I stood in front of all my staff and said, look what we did. We not only did we fulfill what we said we were going to do budget wise, we even sent more. And right now the mallards and the widgeon need that.
Right.
And so it's really cool that the harder we work, the more conservation we can put on the breeding grounds. And man, that's exciting to me every single day.
Do you ever feel like you go to work or you don't? Because most times I don't feel like I have to go to work. I have some things I don't like to do, but I enjoy what I do. And even weekends, I get bored at weekends unless we're gone somewhere because there's nothing to do because nobody's in their office. I mean, it's just weekends are boring to me. Do you ever get bored when you're not at the office?
No.
What?
No, when I'm not at the office, absolutely.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wake up if I go to bed at 1 a.m, at 4:30 I wake up ready to go to work and do something to try to raise more ducks.
See,
and usually I have to make myself go to sleep because nobody wants an email sent to them at 4:45 in the morning.
Oh, hold on. Repeat that again, please, because I have a list of about 10 guys that text me or email me anywhere from 3:30 to 5:30 in the morning. My phone will go off. I'm like, God almighty. And guys will just be like, randomly have a question. And I don't ever answer them till about 7:30 in the morning. And I'm one of these days, and I know they listen to me, don't text me, please, before 6:30 a.m. in the morning.
Turn your phone on Do Not Disturb.
But something important might happen.
If they call more than once, it goes through.
No shit?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll do that tonight then. But my phone, I've got a couple of guys. One of them works night shift. He's a great guy. But God almighty, he wants to chit-chat at 1. He must have a break about 3:30 in the morning because about 3:30 in the morning he sends me shit all the time.
But nobody's expecting you to respond to that.
Well, I understand, but it still wakes me up.
Well, put it on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah, but I will say texts at 4:30 and emails at 4:30 are completely different.
Yes.
I will send an email out at 5 just to get my day started and get it off my plate. But a text message at 5.
Yeah, that's personal.
Well, they're pretty. They're pretty damn personal
pretty-
because there's about 10 of them that do it all the time.
Maybe they just think because you're in the waterfowl business, you're up that early.
Well, I got news for them. I'm not.
Could be.
I'm not.
I am. That's when I get my day started.
At 3:30 in the morning.
5:30. During hunting season, it starts at 3:15.
And see, that's
When my
another-
alarm goes off.
Like, and that's another thing. I always check my phone, especially during waterfowl season, because it's not unusual for the knuckleheads to call me at 4 a.m. over a question.
We forget a lot of shit.
And I get a lot of calls at 4 a.m. or shit. Then I got to wake up, and then you go back to sleep, or you get off the phone, and then you like call back 10 minutes later. Well, hold on, this is what we're supposed to be doing because you're in a fog still.
Right.
Hey, let me ask y'all this. Will your body let you sleep later in March than it does October? Because in October, I start waking up earlier, and all I can attest it to is somewhere my brain is saying, you've got to start getting conditioned to getting up and getting at it earlier because hunting season's coming.
Right. I with kind of my routine, I'm up at 5:30, so I don't think I'm gonna have to do too much conditioning. But yeah, like there were a couple mornings ago, I woke up at 3:30 for no apparent reason, and I could not go back to sleep. Like I tossed and turned for. I bet I watched the clock turn to 5 o'clock. So I toss and turn an hour.
If you're getting up at 3:30 or 5:30 now,
Yeah.
when you get old, I really feel sorry for you because the older I get, the less I can sleep. Like I go to bed every night between 12 and 1 a.m. every single night, unless I'm really, really tired. And I wake up every morning. I'm up. I don't always get out of bed, but I start waking up about 5:45 to 6:15 every morning, and I'm out of bed usually by 7:30. Not all the time, but I used to be able to sleep till 9 or 10 o'clock easy. I can't do that no more. About 5 hours sleep is about all I get if I get 5 hours of sleep. And I don't wake up tired or nothing. I got a lot of shit on my mind and a lot of things I really want to do. And I also enjoy about an hour and a half where it's just me and I can do whatever I want to do. I mean, there's a quiet time. It's kind of like being in your truck. When I scout, sometimes I turn the radio and everything off and it's just me and nothing. And I might drive for an hour with no radio on or nothing, and I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I have an 8 and a 5-year-old, and I don't know how they do it, but every single morning they wake up hungry. They come out, they first, not good morning, not I gotta pee, not nothing. It's I'm hungry. It's like, how in the hell is this possible? Why are you hungry? I'm never hungry when I first wake up. It takes me a while to get hungry. First thing they say every single morning. So having that little bit of time, like Jeff, if I can get an hour, if I can get a cup or two of coffee down, and then I'm ready for requests, then I'm in a much better state of mind.
You're sure going to miss that 8 to 5-year-old asking you that in a couple of
Yeah,
years.
everybody says that, but when you're in the middle of it, you sure get annoyed about it.
It's a blessing that you have and you do not realize. Now, when your blessings are at my house and they spend the night, it's a blessing when they go back home.
Yep.
I love them to death, but when they walk out that door to go back home, I'm like, thank gosh. What do you think? Let's talk ducks for a minute. The geese, I don't see nothing on the geese numbers.
That comes out separate.
Yeah, and I'll tell y'all, I'm hoping y'all might have heard something on what happened, especially up on the Arctic with the specks. I've heard nothing, and I've reached out. That is so far removed from society, from mankind. Sometimes we have to wait, and as the first group start down here hitting the prairies, get binoculars out and see what the hatch was like.
We've been told that our numbers are increasing and our bag limits are going to dramatically increase starting next year.
I don't want a dramatic increase.
From 2 to 5 is dramatic.
I don't want that.
I don't either. We need to go to 3 and stay there.
For spec?
That's what we've been told, that next year our spec limits will be 5.
Wow.
Now, that is not going to be the case at Stanfield Hunting Outfitters. I can tell you right now, we are going to be on a 3-bird limit.
3.
We are imposing that ourselves. One of the other outfitters, I'm not going to say his name, is doing the same thing. And the other guy that hunts in my area, I hadn't talked to him about it, but I'm going to. But that's what we're going to do. And if I've got clients that they're like, well, it's 5, well, we're not doing that. We're shooting 3 specs per person.
It's 2 right now, and we get to January a lot of times, and they won't budge. So I can't imagine shooting an extra 3 birds over the course of November and December, what they would be like, and if they would even be here. I don't know. We might blow them out of the county.
I mean, we're hunting 100,000, 150,000 birds, but we're supposed to go to 5 birds is what we were told, but we will be self-imposed at 3. If that happens, we will go to 3. I would like to just go 3 dark geese, 3 total. That's it. Don't have to shoot.
I tell you, it's 3 where I hunt in Arkansas. They played around with the 3 to 2. 2 birds, you get an extended season on them. 3 birds,
right?
You basically get an spec season, and then it mirrors duck season. I think 3 is the perfect amount. You put 4 guys in a panel blind, and you 12 geese. A, that's a lot of meat.
Yep.
B, that's a really, really good hunt. I've had some hunts where, we could have shot 20 geese, but it's not every day. And birds got to rest.
Yeah.
And, I have friends that would come and hunt with me as my guest, and they'd want to sit out there until we tried to fill a limit. And it's hard to tell somebody that, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell clients too that are paying to be out here.
Harder to tell a client. Yeah, harder to tell a client than your buddy from high school.
But it's just, it's easy to tell guys like in December. Those early guys are going to be hard to tell, but it's like, like the guys that are hunting in late December, it's like, well, like we're telling you the same thing that we told guys at Thanksgiving. Like, we've got to think of this as a long play, because if we burned them up in November, your hunting late December might not be worth a shit. So we're just going to pass it on down the line.
It's like our guides. My guides don't shoot. Now, we do shoot a little bit, but we don't do it very often. And I'll have guys all the time, well, won't you let your guide shoot? Well, let's say I've got 12 employees. Let's say 6 of them shoot unlimited specs every day. That's 12 birds a day. Well, that's an extra 1,000 birds. What aren't we better off sending them back up north to have some babies and come back? It doesn't make sense. And I believe if we went to a 3 duck limit, and boy, everybody listens like, oh, I can't believe you said that shit. The same amount of people are going to hunt. You like to duck hunt. That's the thing. You love to be out to shoot ducks. You'll shoot 3 ducks. You may be pissed later on, but you'll still hunt. You'll hunt just as many days because you like to shoot a duck. So if the limit's 3 ducks or 5 ducks or 6 ducks, you're still the same amount of hunters are going to go shoot 3. Clients are the same way. They're going to book a hunt. They may want to shoot more, but that's the rules, and you go by it. And I don't think the hunting days per hunter is going to come out of the field just because we lower the limits a little bit. I think everybody enjoys them. So
3 seems low on the ducks.
I don't think so. I mean, it does
4.
if you could shoot 5 or 6. Would you still
4.
duck hunt just as many days if you could shoot 3, David?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a representation of every hunter out there. I mean, a lot of the hunts I went on growing up, we could only shoot 2. Right. If we went on a wood duck shoot, it was 2. If we went to go shoot redheads at the coast, it was 2. Now, you might have a group of scaup come in. We weren't allowed to shoot buffleheads. Occasional big duck on a point hunting diving ducks, but I'm a little bit of a different breed like y'all.
What?
I mean, if it were one, I'd still go and do it.
You'd still be out there.
See,
but
I think that's Pat Pitt, the famous taxidermist from Memphis, Tennessee, is as true a waterfowl hunter as I know. Pat Pitt is still going to hunt just as many days if his limit is 3 or 5. It's in his blood. He loves it. It's what he does. He loves working the ducks and stuff. Mags, you've hunted with Mags before. Mags loves to waterfowl hunt as much as anybody I know does. If the limit was 1 duck per day, Mags is going to hunt just as many days as he does. Do you believe that, Andy?
Yeah.
Because he absolutely is ate up with being a waterfowl hunter. It's in his blood. And, I mean, I enjoy watching the hunting more than I do the hunting now because I've just too much stuff going on. But if I didn't have to go and I sat in a duck blind for a couple of hours with my grandkids and with boys to get to shoot a duck or 2, I would love it. I mean, it's just part of being out there. And I think that people sell themselves short when they think, oh, I'm not going to hunt if it's not 5 or 6 birds. I think you would. What are you going to do? Sit home and do honeydews all day for your wife? No. It's kind of like watching preseason football. I don't want to watch preseason football. It bores the shit out of me. As soon as the starters are out, I turn it off. But if it's regular football season, I'll watch Appalachian State play Louisiana Tech if it's a game that counts because I like football. I want to watch it. So Same with hunting. I want to go out and be in the outdoors, and most of our clients are the same way.
What do you think it was about waterfowl hunting that bit you, David? Because I've got, like I said, I got an 8-year-old, and he's coming about the age that I was whenever the bug bit me and made me obsessed. And it's going to be interesting to see if he has that same passion.
I've thought about this because I have 2 sons, and it bit one of them and it didn't bite the other one. And like, I'm cool with that, right? Like, and maybe it will later in his life. He just did, and he did it, right? Like, shot his first duck, shot his first dove. You know, we went through all the same motions, and then it was just like, Dad, I just, you know, it just, this, I'd rather go fishing. Okay, cool. I don't know, because as long as I can remember, that's all I wanted to do. And I think part of it was watching my father and grandfather. I think it was that modeling. Mm-hmm. And it's so now I'm going to get on my soapbox just a little bit. And I shot my first duck at the age of 5, and probably went on my first duck hunt at the age of 4, but I was allowed to go 1 time a year. Mm-hmm. So in 1974, I got to go once. In 1975, I got to go once. And my dad will tell me, and I don't know if he's BSing me or not, but my dad tells me, I purposefully did not carry you on every single hunt because I wanted you so pent up to go that when you finally started going, it was euphoric for you. And I can remember watching my father at 4:30 in the morning leave the house, and I would be sobbing because he wasn't taking me with him.
Yeah. Looking
back on it, I do think that built up a little something. I also think it was the 1970s, and that's just the way dads were in the 1970s.
Right.
You don't get to go every time, boy. You know, I'll take you when it's a little bit warmer. I'll take you, you know, when I'm not going with the big boys or whatever. And so for me, it's just as long as I can remember. Like, I was playing with decoys at the age of 3, and that's all I wanted to do was throw them out and hunt them.
Right. But it's interesting because I'm kind of probably the first age kid that had video games at home, like that were good, like not just Pong or whatever. But like, I look at some of the stuff that my kid plays now, and it's like, why would you want to go out at 4:30 in the morning? It's cold. It's probably might be a little wet, and like, you know, you got that. So everything in society right now is working against the little kids going out hunting. And the parents, I think, are going to have, you know, you wanted to go. I'm afraid that I'm going to have to like put a little cattle prod up his ass. And my oldest, they're both very outdoorsy. So I don't think that I'm going to have a problem with either one of them. But if you look at kids en masse, there's an uphill battle with technology the way that it is.
My youngest son doesn't have the desire that the oldest 2 boys do about it. And he told me he's coming home. We're fixing to pick him up at the airport this week. He's coming home for 13 days. And I said something about Friday. He's going to be here for opening weekend of dove season. And I said, I think Friday night, I said, we'll hunt a little bit somewhere if we've got some birds and you can hunt with us. He goes, I think I'm doing something. He said, a big gamer deal that he's involved with has got a big drop of something new. And I'm thinking, Jesus freaking Christ, damn. But that's his interest is that way, and more than it is the hunting deal. But when I was little, I was consumed with duck hunting when I was little. I mean, little, like 7, 8 years old, like you. I shot my first duck. I think I was 7 and Tony was 5. Tony shot his first duck opening day of duck season when he was 5. And I was freaking pissed because I hunted, I shot, and I shot, and I shot, and I shot. And we hunted every weekend with my dad, and we hunted every day. And I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. The last day of hunting season at Miller Creek Lake up here, I shot a green-winged teal that landed in the decoys. I ran through the freaking blind to go pick my duck up. That was my first duck I killed. I'll never forget that day to this day. The next year, I shot a ton of ducks. For some reason, I learned how to shoot between when me being 7 and being 8. But I was consumed with it. I used to love to get the DU magazine. I mean, I would go through that thing 1,000 times and look at the pictures. And I was consumed with waterfowl hunting at a young age. I wrote an essay to Ducks Unlimited when I was 12, and I'm still pissed at DU because I didn't win. They were taking 6 kids to Alberta, 2 or 8, 2 from each flyaway, wrote an essay. and they took them up there to help ban birds. And I wrote the most beautiful essay. My dad,
you already said you were shitty at English, Jeff, so it probably wasn't that beautiful.
My dad helped me. I'm a good writer, though.
Oh.
I'm a good writer, creative. I wrote the best thing in the world. My dad went over, man, it was so good. And they sent me a damn rolled up print for signing up for it.
You were like,
and that's all I got.
You were like Ralphie on Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Ovaltine.
Yeah. I was so upset I did not win that. I just knew I was going to win. It was beautiful. I took it to school. My teacher proofread it. She goes, oh, that's very, very good. I'm like, hell, I'm in, boy.
I'm in.
Well, I wasn't in. But I was consumed with waterfowl hunting.
Part of my responsibility at DU is also oversight of our youth and ed programs, the R3 programs. And, Andy, you could, while you had the great video games at home, my oldest son, who was 20, really had the first good video games on his phone.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And one of the things that I share with young fathers who are taking them out for the first time, and this is something that I think I did right. The first time I took Will, my oldest, into a tree stand, we did a 5-hour sit, and he was 6 years old. That's a long sit for a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Now, he watched 2 movies, and he played my phone till the battery went dead. But every time a deer would come out, I'd say, Will, come here. Then the movie would go down, the phone would go down. He'd watch that deer for 10 minutes. Are you going to shoot that one, Dad? No, I'm not going to shoot that one. Then the next one, are you going to shoot that one? And I've watched over time, even to today, phones are so much a part of that generation. He loves duck hunting. He loves watching the birds come in. Loves every aspect of it. But I've just noticed that the phone is always in their hands. But he still loves it. I've watched it become less and less and less and less and less. And I'm so glad looking back on it that first sit in North Georgia, deer hunting, that I didn't make him sit there without that video player, because that's what he was used to.
Right.
And, for my dad, my first deer sit was in his Bronco with the radio on. Well, fast forward, and now it's a movie player in a kid's hands. And I've made the comment to our board before that if we think we're going to remove technology out of kids' hands, we will lose that battle, because all of us, as a 53-year-old, my phone is in my hand all the time. And I've got a picture of last year looking down on a pit. I'd gotten out to move some decoys around or whatever, and I came back, and there's 4 grown men all with their head in their phone, and I took a picture of it. And I save it, and I go, it's not just the kids that are a little into the technology. Yeah. So if there's any young fathers, marry that stuff up, like mix it up. We can still get them outside. I think it just goes back a little bit to who's going to get bit and who isn't.
Right. Yeah, and you got to meet kids halfway. You can't just be like, because prime example, I love turkey hunting. And I took my boys with me turkey hunting. Their mom was out of town, and I had them for a weekend. It was the last weekend of turkey season. And I hadn't shot a bird. So, we're going to go turkey hunting, boys. But, I was kind of monkeying between, like, do I worry about taking, entertainment for them, or do I be the dad where it's like, no, like, you're going to sit and you're going to love it. But then I got to thinking about me as a turkey hunter at 35 years old. If it gets boring, I'm pulling out my phone and I'm looking at Instagram. I'm going to turn the volume down. I'm going to scroll through TikTok, and I'm going to read the captions as they go by. So it's like, you asshole, you're sitting here saying, no, kid, sit there and be bored and love the great outdoors. But it's like, you're a hypocrite, because as soon as you make a call and you don't hear a gobble right away, you pull your phone out. So I was a little bit more lax than maybe I thought I would have been, before I was a dad or anything like that. It's just, you kind of have these unrealistic expectations, but it was like, okay, like, let's make it fun, not make it torturous. And they love the snacks. Like, we kind of limit a lot of sugar consumption, but when hunting season rolls around and they're out in the blind, it's like, listen, gas station is as good as it's going to get. So having little treats out there for them is a bonus.
The boys love to scout too.
That hasn't changed since the 70s. Right. For kids, you still have to have a lot of junk food.
You know, we had a old,
Load up.
we had a black, do you remember them old metal lunch cans that look like a, kind of like a mailbox around on top, just an old black metal one?
Yeah,
Yep.
the flip top. Yeah.
My dad had one of them, and we used to have the old thermos that was the red plaid thermos that Stanley made probably. And we would buy a bottle of Coke or something all the time because you didn't have bottled water back then. You couldn't even buy bottled water then. But we had sandwiches, and we would have sandwiches and hard-boiled eggs, chips, oatmeal cream pies, the same thing we have now. But that fucking lunchbox, we had suckered open before we even got the last decoy in usually. But it was good times, and I'm so much thankful my dad took that time to do that with us instead of going with his friends. That's one of the things that we need more. We need more dads to take their kids on a hunt. And like you said, make it fun for the kids, but expose it to them. There's so many dads don't bring their kids hunting. They love to hunt, but they don't ever take their kid to hunt. Oh, they just like video games. Get them to go hunting with you every once in a while.
Meet them halfway.
Yeah.
Meet them halfway.
Meet
them halfway. Exactly right. Yeah. And I'll say for folks listening out there, the science is clear and concise. Before a child is really driving age, right? When they're kind of out on their own, 9 times out of 10, to get them involved in the outdoors, it takes a mentor. It's not a group of them going and trying it for one time and going, oh, I'm going to be a duck hunter, or, oh, I'm going to be a turkey hunter. It takes that mentor relationship, whether it's a father, a grandfather, the child next door. It has to be somebody that takes them, shares with them how to do it, why this is important. And as you look at it, you can become a hunter once you mean to do so, once you're in your teens. But at that formative age, it has to be somebody taking them to do it. And I'm proud that in my life, there's more than just my sons that I've introduced to hunting and fishing. There's nephews and people like that whose father maybe wasn't a hunter. And as I look back, they're grown now, having their own children. And I'm just proud that, one day they'll be able to tell somebody, yeah, if not for David Schuessler, I wouldn't have become a duck hunter, or I wouldn't have become a deer hunter. And really, it's going to take all of us taking that time and doing it to get people introduced. I have a couple of kids here in Memphis who tell me on an annual basis, if you had never taken me on those first duck hunts, I wouldn't be a duck hunter now. And both of them are avid duck hunters. I'm as proud of that as I am the stuff I do with DU, because I put some more people out there, and hopefully they'll have kids, and the pyramid continues.
Yeah. One of the highlights of that turkey hunt, we didn't shoot anything. Terrible luck as a turkey hunter, but my 5-year-old, he'd be, doing whatever he was doing, and a bird would gobble, and like he would recognize that was what it was. And he'd put down whatever he was doing. He'd be like, Dad, there was a gobble out there. So he might not be just bored out of his mind, focused on the hunt, but he was still participating, because if one would gobble or something, he would always kind of point, and then I'd have to get onto him for moving too much. But he was engaged at least. He wasn't totally just in a different world.
Life was simple too. When me and David were growing up, life was so much simpler because we didn't have a lot of extra things. I mean, TV sucked. I mean, there was nothing on TV. You had 3 channels probably. Did you grow up with just a couple of channels, or did you have cable from the time you were little on?
Well, there were 3 channels in Tallahassee, but when you got down to the coast, you could pick up one from Panama City and one from Tampa. Yeah, 5 channels.
Okay, so you didn't have much channels either. So that was going hunting was entertainment because it was something different.
Yeah,
we didn't do it all the time. We've had Hot Wheels and we had Army men to play with. I mean, we didn't have all the things they have. Kids today have so many more choices to make on something fun. And I'm like you. The video games they have are amazing. We had arcades that cost us 25 cents a pop, and we got to play for 3 minutes. And we fed quarters into Mr. Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, and the kids don't have that shit now. They've got it on their phone at all times.
What did y'all watch before y'all went to school? Like when you got ready in the morning?
Mr. Green Jean or Captain Kangaroo.
Oh, so they did have cartoons on then?
That wasn't a cartoon.
Oh.
Kids don't even know what Captain Kangaroo. That's crazy. Captain Kangaroo was a kid show.
TBS out of Atlanta would show The Little Rascals and Three Stooges every morning.
That was it.
That was cable
That's
TV, though.
Yeah,
That was cable.
that's what.
But now my kids, when they're getting ready to go to school, or whenever the 8-year-old is, like it's, I mean, pick your favorite show and you can have it on right now.
You stream
Yeah.
it.
So technology is going to change
Hey,
everything.
Jeff, there's a place in Memphis now. I'm not going to say the name because I can't remember it, but it's somebody has gotten an old house and they've gotten all the classic video games from the 80s and early 90s.
Oh, that's cool.
Galaga, Joust, Pac-Man, Cubert.
Hubert, I haven't
All
heard
the
that in
ones-
years.
Go and we used to chunk those quarters into. They made an arcade. You pay $10 and you can go and play as long as you want.
Oh, that's awesome.
That would be fun. And what's crazy, 30 minutes and you're ready to go, probably.
I don't know. I kept beating the high score on Galaga and driving it into my sons that I told you your dad was good on the. Where do you think I learned how to lead a duck?
I love Galaga.
Wichita Falls has one of them, and it was a cereal bar. You got cold cereal, too.
Okay, this is so on Saturday mornings this place does cereal, and I think they, on the TVs or whatever, they run old cartoons. So it sounds like it's the same type deal, but it was pretty fun to watch my boys, even though they're 20 and 17, play those old games. It was also fun to whip their ass. But
I tried to buy me a Donkey Kong machine not long ago, about a year ago. I wanted a Donkey Kong machine.
We bought an old Nintendo about 5 years ago, and it's got it comes preloaded with a bunch of games, and the kids love to play it. Old Mario's on there, Galaga, Donkey Kong's on there. They love it.
retro.
Did you ever have an Atari?
I think, if I remember the story correctly, my father bought an Atari out of the back of a van near Florida campus. It was probably hot. I had the first Atari in my neighborhood, and our den or whatever became the gathering place for about 6 families worth of kids, because Pong, the original one, Pong, and we'd sit down there for hours and play it.
When I was in junior high, 7th grade, a buddy of mine had an Atari, and I would go over there and we'd spend the night, and we would play bowling on that shit. And looking back now, the graphics were freaking terrible, but it kept 12 of us probably engaged every weekend. At nighttime, we'd go over there just to play Atari all night long. And we would play bowling all the time. Bowling and Space Invaders.
Yep.
And was happy and thought, man, that was cutting edge shit right there. It's better than anything NASA could do.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I don't know.
It was incredible.
There's some interesting problems, or not problems, but interesting issues that outdoorsmen are going to have to tackle with their kids. Because, I was always, my kid will never blah, 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 blah. And, and then you get kids and you're like, well, this shit ain't going away. So.
Yep. It's not going away.
What about print? Because there's a prominent magazine in Texas, and everybody knows football is king in Texas, and it ranks high school football.
It's Dave Campbell's.
Dave Campbell's football magazine, and it is like the Bible. 1st of August, it comes out right around 2-a-day starting, and for whatever reason, it was hard to find this year. And I don't know. My grandfather loves it. That's what he reads, but he thinks that they're making a push to go digital. Are we seeing any of that with Ducks Unlimited?
You can get our magazine digitally. We are not overwhelmed with requests to do that. So once you become a member, you can go on and here's my member number. Send it to me digitally. Great. Our magazine is still very well read. What's interesting about if you look at the whole print medium, is magazines like Garden and Gun, Hook and Barrel, which I believe is a Texas-based magazine, and some of the others, is you have these new upstarts that everybody wants to get. So it makes sense that people are getting more of their information and news from their phone and tablets, which I know I do. I mean, that's just a fact.
Right.
But there still is enough people wanting to receive something through the mail and flip it every month. I really don't know where it's going, because it shocks me how many new magazines are out there on the market. And maybe that becomes special now. I'll tell you this is interesting. We had an intern out of Davidson, a mathematics kind of scientific type program that he did to see if people are opening up our emails or our paper invitations to come to an event, which one gets opened quicker and read. And it's the paper invitations. Really? So I think you're seeing a swing, at least for us, a swing to where our inboxes are so full because we're on so many lists that are being bought up, that kind of that old school reaching somebody through their mailbox and, hey, here's something that actually pertains to me that isn't junk. I'm getting this because I'm a member of DU. That it might be a better bang for our committee's buck to use paper invitations. Obviously, you have to overlay an email on top of it, but it's real interesting now what's happening, because I don't think we're shifting away from print as quickly as the industry thought we would.
I love to read, and so I like magazines because you can sit down and read the damn thing without my phone. Phones are not good for our eyeballs. You know, they're small.
No.
I would much rather. I miss reading a newspaper. The Dallas Morning News, I used to read their sports, and it'd take me an hour to read the sports page every day. It was that good. It was full of stuff. I haven't seen a Dallas Morning News in 10, 15 years. But I know the Wichita Falls and Abilene newspaper we get is terrible. It's about a fifth of the size it used to be because there's nothing in there. Hell, there's nothing you're going to put on the news that you don't get by Twitter and know instantly anyways. But the Dave Campbell's magazine is still timeless. I've got it. I bought it. I was going to buy your grandpa one, and I read it. And I'll thumb through it and check stuff during football season. Some kid will be playing. I'll be like, I wonder where he's from, and I'll look up stuff in there all the time. But I like the Ducks Unlimited magazine. I used to read Wildfowl a lot because it interests me. Texas Monthly is still a magazine I enjoy reading, but we need more magazines. But there's so many of the young generation, I don't know if they even look at magazines. I think it's all the old people that are still keeping them in business.
I don't know. I got the Ducks Unlimited magazine last week, and I looked through it.
Yeah, but you're old. I consider you one of us.
I'm old. Okay.
I'm talking
That's
about
great.
I'm talking about people under the age of 25. I wonder how. I would like to know the stats on how many people under 25 are reading a magazine, or it's people over the age of 40, let's say.
I think of it as a interest specific magazine, something like Ducks Unlimited, which I would even drill that down a little deeper than Texas Monthly, right? I mean, Texas Monthly is about Texas, DU's about Ducks Unlimited. I think even college age kids are flipping the Ducks Unlimited magazine if they're an avid waterfowl hunter or one of our volunteers inside of our chapters, because they tell me they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think if it's interest specific, I think it kind of transcends that I get everything off of my phone. And I think because if you think about it, the DU magazine has a lot of news in it, but it's not news right now today. Here's what's happening right now.
Right.
It's news about here's a project that we did, or, you know, here's what we're doing with the DU trap program. And it's content. It's really good content that people are interested in, and they can read it at their own pace.
Right.
Yep. And it's ducks. And that's what people like is ducks. I don't care who you are or what you have. Duck hunters are a whole different fraternity than any other hunters in the world. There are guys that love shooting grouse. There are guys that love to shoot dove. They shoot quail, shoot deer, shoot elk. There ain't nothing like duck hunters. Duck hunters are a unique fraternity, and there's a lot of us. You can walk into any office in the world, and if I saw that sculpture on someone's desk, I automatically have something in common with them.
Yeah, and we're the wildest group on campus, too.
Yep.
Or the crazy one of the two.
Just freaking crazy.
So what's going on besides the duck numbers? You got any other new news?
I got some big news. In fact, I've got some news that very few people, if any, have heard about.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is hot off the presses. In fact, Ducks Unlimited hasn't even put it in our magazine or done a press release on it
So
yet.
this is the first place people can hear about it. Big Honker Podcast.
Yeah, so
we're breaking news. We're journalists now, Jeff.
Hear it here first. And the first of its kind for DU. Late last week, we inked a deal with Garth Brooks where he is going to do a concert. We're calling it a concert for conservation.
Whoa.
February 19th in Las Vegas at the Caesars Palace Auditorium. And the only way you can get in to this concert is to purchase tickets through Ducks Unlimited through our events. Over the course of the next 12 months, we're going to have a sweepstakes coming out. Online auctions, online raffles, we'll have them in there, but there's only 2,000 of these packages available. This is a small, intimate coliseum there at Caesars. Every seat is within 147 feet of the microphone. And we are excited. We're thrilled. It's something we've never done. Johnny Morris and Bass Pro Shops help facilitate this arrangement with DU and Garth Brooks. Garth came and spoke to our convention attendees when we were in Vegas earlier this summer, and really kind of fell in love with what we do, and said, hey, let's do a concert with just DU people. So it's going to be one of the biggest DU events inside of 2025. We're going to raise some money for our conservation efforts doing it, but to partner with the biggest name in country music and the second largest album seller of all time is a big deal for DU. So there it is. Ducks Unlimited, Garth Brooks.
Ducks Unlimited and Garth Brooks. I bet when you took that job, you never thought that would be a marriage.
What are the tickets going to run? Do y'all know yet? Or
and when will they be on sale?
Yeah, they're going to be on auction. So it's how much do you want to pay for them? It's 2 nights at Caesars, and then the tickets to his concert are. Garth fetches a nice price. He is in high demand to see in this auditorium right now. You know, he's playing out there right now. I would think that the lowest you would see one of these things go for is probably be in that $3,500 range, which is a hell of a deal for 2 nights at Caesars, as well as the 2 tickets for a concert. Each package is 2 nights at Caesars and 2 tickets for that concert on the 19th.
When are these going to be live? When can people start trying to get these tickets?
They are live right now. As a matter of fact, I went to our website, and I've already seen that in states where we can legally raffle online. Unfortunately, that's not all 50 states, but in states where we can legally raffle online, I'm already starting to see some online raffles pop up. We didn't even have imaging approved by Garth yet. We sold some by word of mouth on live auctions this past weekend. Jeff, I'll tell you, they averaged around $5,000 this past weekend. But right now, if you go to www.ducks.org and search Garth Brooks inside of the site, I'm sure that we have some online auctions that have popped up today that are already selling these tickets. It's a first come, first serve on them, and our chapters know that we only have 2,000 of these packages to sell. So we think they're going to sell out pretty quickly, given the special nature of this partnership. And I'm excited about it. I'm really, really excited. I think for Garth to do that for a nonprofit speaks volumes to what he thinks about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And special thanks to Johnny Morris. I'm going to tell y'all this, and let's just put DU to the side for a minute. If you're a turkey hunter, a quail hunter, a trout fisherman, a saltwater fisherman, a duck hunter, an elk hunter, it doesn't matter what you do. Johnny Morris and Bass Pro Shops have helped the conservation organizations that focus in on all those different species more than I think the hunting and fishing public in our country could ever imagine. I mean, it's like every day Johnny Morris and Bass Pro Shops does something for conservation in this country. And, you know, here's another example of it, helping work this deal out where we can have this special concert. So it's amazing how generous that man is in understanding, you know, whether it's Rocky Mountain Elk or the National Wild Turkey Federation or DU, he's helping everybody.
See that, Andy? Remember that conversation I had today?
What?
At the grocery store?
What? Oh, yeah.
I had a conversation today with this person, and they were bitching about rich people. And I told them, I said, you know, if it wasn't for rich people, there wouldn't be any schools. There wouldn't be any universities, and there wouldn't be any hospitals.
Schools, hospitals, and I mean, it just, you magnify it out to this.
I go, you can bitch about anybody in the world that's wealthy. Somebody somewhere busted their ass to make that money, regardless if they're trust fund kids or not. But we wouldn't have anything in the world if it wasn't for those rich people. And I mean, you can still make it on your own, but every community is benefited by having wealthy people in town. Everyone. And so Johnny Morris goes on and proves that, because that's a poor person don't give jobs away, can't hire you, and a poor person cannot help with charitable contributions. They don't have it. But rich guys like that make a difference in the world, and hats off to him. We need more of that.
He is an incredible individual. And even this last Saturday, here's how neat Johnny is. This last Saturday night, they were running in Daytona, and I'm not a big NASCAR fan, but they were running in Daytona. He donated Truex's car wrap to Ducks Unlimited. He was driving a DU branded car and ended up winning the championship, which is good for DU. It's a great branding opportunity. But, you know, Ducks Unlimited didn't pay any money to have the duck head running around that track with, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people watching around the country. Johnny said, nope, we're gonna skin the car that weekend at Daytona. It's going to be all Ducks Unlimited, and we're gonna donate that to them to, you know, so people will hopefully learn more about what they do and give to wetlands conservation so we can have more ducks. I mean, it's something like that every week that he's doing for somebody.
Hats off to that man. I want to change the subject real quick. Who came up with that duck head for y'all's logo?
It was a graphic designer at DU Canada.
What an iconic logo. I'm telling you right now, the Nike swoosh, the Ducks Unlimited head, the McDonald's deal, you name me 2 or 3 others that are bigger than them. You can't. Other companies change logos and shit all the time, you know, and they don't. Like American Airlines, I don't even know what they have on their plane. I sometimes got to figure out what it is before you get on one. But I mean, there's not a lot of iconic symbols that have been timeless, and the DU head is one of them.
Yeah, we've seen studies where it's been laid out there with some other logos when, you know, a marketing company was trying to figure out what are the most iconic logos out there, and they might have an outdoor, you know, section with DU and Bass Pro, and it's pretty well recognized, and we treat it as such. We know the power that brand has from how well it's recognized, and we hold it in pretty high regard. No plans to change it, although some of our vintage logos, there's an old one with a duck flying, which
at it. Is that it back? That might be it back there. Y'all sent us a bunch of stuff, and you sent us is it on the flag?
That's the one that's got the Mexico, Canada, and USA one, and it's a duck flying the mallard.
Yeah, no, that's the shield. This one predates that. I don't have one here. I'd show it to you. We put it on some stickers. I just wanted to see how it did. We put it on some stickers and put it out there in some of the inside of the college chapter world, and man, they ate it up. So we're gonna some of our vintage logos, we're gonna do some small boutique pieces with them, but they are never ever going to replace that duck head. That thing is very sticky. And let me ask you all this, because there's a long-standing argument. You think that's a mallard head or a pintail head?
Ooh, that's a pintail.
I'm saying mallard.
The beak.
See,
the beak.
there you go. There you go.
I guess it is a pintail, isn't it?
I think it can be whatever you want.
I don't know.
So you asked us a question, but you didn't have an answer.
It can be whatever you want it to be.
I don't have an answer. I've never been told if the intention of that was a mallard head or a pintail head. I just know that where
What about
it
a
was created.
gadwall?
I think I've always thought of it as a mallard head, but now that I'm looking at it, I think it's a pintail head.
What about a gadwall?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You can see both in it. I think whoever designed it did a fantastic job.
Are they still alive?
Because you could. I don't know. I don't think so. DU Canada had that logo before DU Inc. And we adopted it, I think in the early 90s is when that was adopted. And prior to that, it was the Shield. And there's actually several logos, old ones, where they went through quite a few. But the duck head that is without a doubt our official logo, and will be, I'm certain, for as long as I'm still working for the organization.
When I go somewhere and I see someone with a DU on, you can talk to them. You got something to talk about. That's right back to that Ducks Unlimited, that fraternity you're in. That's an automatic member of that fraternity if you got a DU shirt on. So,
what do you think it is?
I'd like to think it's a pintail. And I know there are going to be people coming into my office going, "You dumbass, that's not a pintail." As I look at it, there's something about the line going to the eye that gives it that bull pintail look to me.
Yeah, the more you've ruined it for me now. I look at it, all he's completely different now.
So let's go back to Garth Brooks. So he was speaking at an event, and he just loved what you guys had going on.
Yeah, so our national convention was in Las Vegas. Johnny Morris, who has a close personal relationship with Garth, was coming to speak to our convention attendees and asked Garth if he would like to join him. Well, we at the same time, this IMAX movie that we have out right now talking about the importance of the prairies, Wings Over Water, Huey Lewis, who a lot of people might not know this, Huey Lewis is an avid fisherman, avid fly fisherman, and isn't playing music anymore due to some hearing loss. So he has dove head first into his passion of fishing. Well, he donated the use of A Power of Love for that movie, that IMAX movie. And so Huey had come out to be a part of the festivities. Well, it ended up the three of them, Garth and Johnny and Huey, were on stage and did a fireside chat, which was just fascinating. It was it was the best presentation that I've ever seen in my 24 years with DU. And out of that, Garth just, I want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something to help Ducks Unlimited. I've learned what you do, what you're all about, wetlands conservation. And what manifested out of that was, let's do a concert. Like, what does Garth do better than concerts? Nothing. So he said, and we'll allow you to sell tickets to it and raise money for it. And we're excited. It's going to be a big time in February 19th of 2025. And good Lord willing, I might be able to go to.
What is something like this? What's the undertaking of it? Is this something that y'all are going to have your hands on, or is it kind of like the event, or is it just pretty well plug and play for Garth? Like, is it at the place that he's at his residency?
Yeah, I think for Garth, it's plug and play. For us, it's managing 2,000 hotel rooms and managing the issuing of 4,000 tickets, but you'll be issuing 2,000 packages. There will be some special, and these are very, very limited, but at some of our larger events across the country, there'll be some VIP packages that include upgraded accommodations, some different events, and all this isn't ironed out yet, but some different events in addition to this. Maybe a special dinner with one of the wildlife chefs out there that has an affinity for DU, and so row seats. Those are going to cost somebody a little bit extra, although this Coliseum is so intimate that 10th row is almost like front row. But managing all of those expectations inside of that, it's a big undertaking.
I've said it for 5 years now. Garth Brooks over George Strait. I've said it. I'm on record as saying it. Garth is a man. Friends in low places.
I'm not touching this.
Friends in low places.
I'm not touching this.
That's Garth's my guy.
I guess I can say that I have friends
That's right.
in low
friends
places.
in low places. That's very exciting. Very, very exciting stuff going on at Ducks Unlimited. So I'm proud that we're associated with you guys. Listen, y'all are slumming, Garth Brooks and the boys at the Big Honker podcast. So never thought we'd be lumped together like that.
Oil and water.
Oil and water. So listen, it's been a lot of fun. Let's do this again right before Into the Vault.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'm not going to tease any of it today, but we have some things in this year that are going to blow away anything we've done in the past.
Let's just figure out a good time for that in early November or something like that and do it again. It's always a lot of fun talking to you, David.
Maybe we can raffle off an autographed Andy Shaver or something.
Yeah, there you go. Get $5. Always a pleasure, David. Take care of yourself and let us know if we can do anything for you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great opening to your season, and let's all be safe.
And I will send you a text on some stuff about the Gold Star hunt here in the next couple of days. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, David. You have a
Outstanding.
great day. God
Thanks,
bless,
guys.
Bye. David, I always enjoy having him on here.
He's a cool dude.
He's a really cool dude with a cool job. One of the jobs I'm jealous of.
One of one.
Yep. There's very few people that I'm jealous of, but he is one of them.
One of one. What day? It doesn't matter. Anyway, go to our YouTube channel. What have we got? 7 episodes of our new series.
Episode 7 comes out this week. Are we doing 10 or 12? I can't remember.
I can't remember. But I think what I'm going to do is for members of Patreon release this week's episode a day early on Patreon.
There you go.
Just as a little,
If you're on Patreon, you get an extra special teaser
But
on it.
listen, you got to go watch it twice on YouTube. That's the way it works. Or leave us a comment or a like button.
Yep,
If you're watching it on Patreon, you got to go to YouTube when it comes out on Thursday and leave a comment, leave a like, so something like that.
Also, doing the Gold Star hunt the end of September for kids who've lost their parents fighting for our freedom. We will be taking donations. We're going to give the kids some money and stuff when they're here. Also, any of that is appreciated very much. Our sponsors have reached out. Mossberg's giving guns away. I got Dive Bomb sent me gun cases yesterday. Boss is going to give shells. Lucky Duck's going to give decoys. Everybody, and I'm going to forget somebody, and so if I leave you out, I don't mean to. But please reach out and help for those kids. We do appreciate it very much. Thank you for listening to us. We wish you all a very safe and happy opener, whether you're shooting ducks in the Canadian prairies or you're shooting doves in West Texas. Be safe out there. Take your kid hunting. Thank you, and God bless.
Go check out all of our wonderful sponsors. Like Jeff said, they're all going above and beyond for these Gold Star kids that are coming out at the end of next month. Go check out Boss Shot Shells. Get the Stanfield 9 sent to you. Pacific Calls, Dive Bomb Industry, Dirty Duck Coffee. Still on my cold brew routine. Shin Gear. They got a lot of goodies out there right now. Looking Glass Podcast. Head over to their Patreon. Lucky Duck, Ducks Unlimited, Double T British Kennels, Mossberg, Stanfield Outfitters, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, and Hemp Hill Farms.